So guys, the Switch 2 has been out for a few weeks now, and as soon as it released, I complained about these Joy-Cons. The ergonomics are not good for my big hands, unfortunately. These Joy-Cons are now a lot taller than they were in the past, but they're still very thin. So that is a problem for me personally, where I just don't have a grip. The other problem with the Joy-Cons for me is that when I'm playing a game like Mario Wonder, like this here, I have to hold the Y button and then press the B button while I'm holding the Y button. The Y button is to run and the B button is to jump. So you want to run, and then as you're running, you want to jump and you press down on the B. So I'm holding Y like this, pressing B, and inevitably what happens is my thumb hits this analog stick, and that is just really annoying and uncomfortable. I don't like it. And so that reminded me that we have a great Switch 2 controller here. Yeah, shout out to Russ from Retro Gamecore. He made a video called The Best Switch Controller is a Phone Controller, and he was talking about this guy right here. This is the GameSir G8 Plus. It's a telescopic controller that is meant for phones, but it does not have a USB-C. So that USB-C is going to be super helpful for a variety of reasons with phones, but for something like the Switch, for something like tablets, you are going to benefit from not having that USB-C because you can just connect it directly onto here. And the nice thing about this is that it is really secure. It's not going to move. And this controller is actually an excellent controller that we're going to get into here. So first of all, there are a lot of magnets on here. So this faceplate is actually removable, just like that. And that's nice because these thumbsticks are removable, just like that. Given that they're removable, GameSir does ship with alternative thumbsticks. This one kind of has a C-stick vibe from the GameCube. I like that a lot with the ridges here. You see that? This one is just sort of an alternative height. So if you want something taller, you can go for that guy. And this one here is just a little tiny nub of a thing. I stick to the default sticks. These buttons can also be removed. These are just in there with magnets. So you can remove them with your hands once you have the faceplate off. But they are a little tough to grab, so I like using one of these guys. By default, these buttons come in an Xbox format. So the X button is over here. The Y button is up here, the A button is down there, and the B button is to the right. But because we're using a Switch, we want to use the Switch format. So I'm going to put them back in the Switch format. So that's a nice feature, right? That the analog sticks are swappable and you have 3 alternative options here, and that the buttons are swappable so that you can use it for either an Xbox format or a Switch format like we have here. Now, as far as the actual controls here, these analog sticks they don't grind against the exterior here. It's a very nice, smooth feeling. They kind of bounce back pretty quickly here. If you don't like the height here, of course, you can go for a longer, taller analog stick with this one. The D-pad I would describe as clicky. There is a bit of a bounce to it, and it feels comfortable for me on fighting games. The buttons are also kind of clicky. They have a little bit of a softness to them, even as you click in. They're not very clicky. They're just kind of clicky. I don't know how to describe that. And that's opposed to these bumpers. These triggers are analog triggers, but I'm going to show you in the software that you can configure these. I should mention that there's also these R4 and L4 buttons here that you can map in the software. And everything here is rubberized. You have rubber edges here, rubber back, rubber edge on that side, so that you can feel pretty comfortable with your Switch or Switch 2 in here. A lot of people have concerns about the pins and kind of messing up those pins. I haven't experienced any issues yet, but I've only been using this for a couple of days, so I do want to issue that caveat. It doesn't feel like they're hitting the pins or altering the pins in any way. So that's important to keep in mind. From a weight perspective, this is 319 grams. The Joy-Cons are 133 grams. This is going to be about 2.5 times as heavy as the Joy-Cons. So now we're talking about 739 grams. Now, I think I did mention that these are Hall effect sticks, which means that they are going to not be prone to drift the same way that these Joy-Con analog sticks are. These Joy-Con analog sticks, already we're getting reports that they may be drifting. Even if you just want to preserve the life of those Joy-Cons, maybe you switch to something like this so that you have the Hall effect sticks. Another thing to point out is obviously this is just a Bluetooth connection. So this controller is going to lose battery life as you use it. It's not going to be charged. That is, again, opposed to these Joy-Cons, which are being charged by the pins as you're using them. So you're going to need to charge these two things separately, both the Switch tablet and the GameSir controller. So out of the box, if you want to get this GameSir controller working with the Switch 2, you need to download the software and you need to upgrade the firmware for this device. Here's what it looks like once the GameSir has already been connected to the phone at least once. You have a number of different options where you can test the controller, you can change the button settings, you can change the joystick settings, but the most important thing is you're going to want to upgrade the firmware. And once you do that, you can pair it to the Switch. So the way you want to pair it to a Switch, you want to hold this button here and the top button. Once you do that, it's going to start flashing red, and that's when it's ready to pair with a Switch or a Switch 2. And then immediately everything works. The analog sticks work, obviously, the D-pad works, the buttons work. That's the screen capture button. This is a sort of like a function button for the controller. Here you have the plus and the minus, and here you have the home button, which works well. There are various shortcuts that you can use for different things, like if you want to do turbo buttons or you want to calibrate the joystick, things like that. There are different options. But this is pretty nice as it is, right? And now I can play games like Super Mario Bros. Wonder and not worry about the problem where I have to press Y and B. Now it is actually considerably easier to do that, right? The next thing I want to show you is a bit of a treat. I'm not going to lie, I'm a fan of this. So let me get into it here. So Downwell is a game where the viewport is primarily vertical, aka Tate. Tate mode is for games that are primarily in a vertical viewport, not a horizontal viewport like this is. And I'll be honest, I don't have a great setup for this yet, but what I do is this. I kind of put Joy-Con strap here. Really what I'm trying to do is give some room to the heating vents. If you don't do that, you actually don't have enough room. It's not going to stay. So you also just want to fill in that gap with something. So to be honest, I'm not going to recommend this. Also, this grip isn't isn't holding on to this very strongly. So it's not as secure as it is without this Joy-Con strap here. Nonetheless, right, I can now play vertical viewport games pretty decently. I'm pretty happy with this setup, right? I can play Downwell. I can play vertical shooters like Ikaruga, which I'm going to show you here shortly. But yeah, this is beautiful. Look at this. I'm so bad at this game now. Forgive me for that, but here we go. There we go. Bam, bam. Ooh. Ooh. There are a number of Switch 1 games that have this vertical mode support. Any vertical shooters typically are going to support this. Games like Ikaruga, games like Crimson Clover, they have this Tate mode available. And with Ikaruga in particular, that is just a classic game that released in the arcades, but also on the Dreamcast. And now you can play it sort of the way it was meant to be played, right, in vertical mode with the Switch 2. So this is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So that is the GameSir G8 Plus. I think it's an excellent controller. I think it is the best controller for the Switch 2, if I'm being completely honest. I cannot go back to using the Joy-Cons. I'm going to be sticking to this from now on. I wonder what you will be doing. If you want to pick this up, of course, I'll leave links in the description down below the like button. But honestly, let me know in the comments what you are using, if you are using anything in particular for the Switch 2. Tech Gang out. Goodbye.